Are you tired of getting stomped in Commander and want to finally build a deck that can compete with the best? We've got you covered.
Forget everything you know about Budget Commander. We're about to unveil a secret list of hidden gems that will make your opponents tremble in fear. Get ready to build a competitive deck on a shoestring budget.
You might be surprised to hear this, but I'm not buying the new pre-constructed decks. Let me explain why and why you might want to reconsider too.
Want to dominate your next Commander game? Then you need to see this. We're revealing the Commander staples that, with a little tweak, could take your deck to the next level. Get ready to unleash the power of these underappreciated cards.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Commander Pod, your Magic the Gathering podcast for all things Commander. I'm Spencer Simpson.
And I'm Kelton Howell, and as you may have gathered from the title of this video and from this awesome intro that definitely felt on brand for us, we let AI write a lot of this, or at least tell us what we should talk about. So one of the things that I get access to in the YouTube studio is the inspiration tab, where YouTube will generate ideas for your channel using AI. And I've never really paid much attention to these suggestions, but I thought it would be fun to check them out and see what patterns their algorithm is picking in the Magic community, because they get so much data on Magic content and what Magic players are consuming. So it's trying to recommend data that or video suggestions that, to the best of its knowledge, is what you all want to see and hear. And I was curious to know how that actually stacks up.
Yeah, so a little bit of a meta episode today where we're going to be hopefully a little bit dissecting what AI interprets Magic players' online behavior and viewership to mean about Magic players and what they want to consume, but
and
also talk about
redirecting some of that discussion. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But also I think talking about some of these topics as well, and because what's actually really funny about this is, as I was reading through like the suggested titles, or I guess topics for these episodes, is it's like pretty on the nose for the type of content I was consuming when I first was getting into Commander a couple of years ago. Yeah. I mean, not all of it, but like I wasn't surprised by a fair amount of this content, particularly, spoilers, some of the budget considerations when building a Commander deck. Yeah,
definitely. So the inspiration tab shows 5 different video concepts with ideas for hooks, an outline for the episode, titles and thumbnails for each one. And then you can also provide a prompt to have the AI then further refine the idea, which is interesting. I didn't do that on any of these. I just took them at face value. So when I checked the tab this week, the 5 video topics that it suggested were Commander strategies for every playstyle, Budget Commander deck tech $50 challenge, the best budget Commander cards for 2025, why I'm not buying the new precons, and Commander staples that need a buff.
I'm really excited to talk about that one. I think it'd be really fun to talk about these a little bit and dissect. I don't know if we're gonna dissect so much of like why these were suggested, but I do think like the reason they were suggested is we do think about these sort of things. And the first one is Commander strategies for every play style. The hook on this one was interesting. If we're moving away from the topic and towards the AI suggestion, it was the first one that I said, tired of getting stomped in Commander, want to finally build a deck that can compete with the best? We've got you covered. That feels not like, hey, let's talk about the different strategies you can play, but more like, let's put Cyclonic Rift in every Commander deck.
Yeah, I think that's a very common arc for Commander players, especially new Commander players, to follow. I think that arms race is dangerous, and most play groups, I think, go through it, where one player gets some powerful cards, and they start maybe winning more games than the other player. So then they feel like they have to get more powerful cards, and it becomes this arms race to see who can get the most powerful deck.
Yeah, and I think because that is such a trend in the Magic community, there's got to be a bunch of videos about powering up your decks.
Yes,
which I think is driving this dichotomy of in the AI's processing or whatever of strategies for every playstyle versus beefing up your Commander deck, which feels like 2 different paths for me.
Definitely. And we did a video a little while ago. I think it was called The Best Budget Upgrade for All Your Commander Decks. I think that was the name of the video. But we talked about how really the best upgrade for your deck is upgrading your play. Like actually having cleaner play, better threat assessment, and fixing the way you play, because your rules of Euro conversations, the brackets, whatever power levels, whatever your play group uses, those should dictate the kinds of cards and strategies that you're playing. So the answer isn't just like throwing in more powerful cards. The answer is build to whatever that power level is that you've decided, and then just get better at playing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that title was a little bit of a red herring because we were trying to because I think the idea is that was like our idea going into the episode was, listen, you can add more powerful cards to your decks, but if you get better at building more synergistic decks that play well together, you don't need to play some of these more powerful cards. In fact,
and that costs $0. That's why it's the best budget.
Yeah,
upgrade
absolutely. Yeah. So I mean, even today we were talking about. I talk about my Garth deck way too much because it's currently my only casual deck that I play. I think.
Really?
I have a list.
You play. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a list of all my decks, and I have a little folder in Moxfield called Keepers. And my Will Help deck was in there until I just recently took it apart for the beginner decks.
Yeah.
And this is my only deck that I feel confident that I want to play all the time.
Interesting.
And I think that one is synergistic enough to play at a 3, and it's still not playing. We were talking about how it's not playing any game changers.
Yeah.
And I think that is like a testament to like the synergy of the deck. And like that's not a pat myself on the back.
The good
like,
deck building. It's because it's very well optimized within those power levels.
Right, and I think that's something that is like really the key to making your decks play better. But I think one thing I want to focus on from this prompt is the strategies for every play style, because I think that is one of the biggest draws for me to Commander. And I guess here's the secondary hook, I guess, from the AI, which is Commander is a diverse format with endless possibilities, from hyper-aggressive strategies to value-based control decks. Let's discover how to build a Commander deck that fits your playstyle and dominate the battlefield. And this, first of all, AI is crazy at their token parsing to the extent that they can get like the lingo of like value-based control strategies. Like,
yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's pretty sick. But I think that's something that actually is the most important steps of someone's early Commander. Magic, I guess, but more so, especially Commander journey, is that you learn to see the different strategies and playstyles that are available, and you find the ones that you resonate most with.
Yes, definitely. And that's actually an episode that we've considered doing, something along the lines of like how to develop your signature playstyle, because that happens. I think for like most people in our play groups that we play with, we can identify the things that they gravitate towards. And like when there's a new commander, we're like, oh, they're going to love this. Or, when they're like, oh, I brewed a new deck, we're like, yeah, that makes sense. That's the kind of deck that you'd find interesting. So Spencer, I'm curious, what do you think your signature style is when it comes to Commander?
Oh, you can't. Oh my goodness. Okay. That is a really good question. The level of self-diagnosing that takes is kind of tough to do on the fly. I think
I can tell you what I think it is, and you can tell me how close you think I am. But I am curious to see what you gravitate towards, what you think you gravitate towards.
Yeah, let me see if I can try to hit it on the nose. I tend to really enjoy decks that take game actions. No, I really like I really like decks that provide a lot of value and decks that can and sometimes that does turn into game actions, right? Like I like aristocrats decks that can I like decks that can operate at instant speed and are flexible. Mm-hmm. I like that aristocrats decks offer that, where you can attack with a creature, you can hold the creature back as a blocker, you can sacrifice it in response. Like I like those sort of things that require stack interactions. I think I like blue for that reason. Because you can try to find the right moment to interact, and control kind of for that reason, because I like interacting. I've tried to expand my horizons and play more aggro decks. I really need to find a Boros deck that I think is fun to play, because I think that's something I need to learn how to do, is play Boros and Selesnya and get more involved in that. But I typically spend my time in the Sans Boros Selesnya shells of Jeskai. I guess Jeskai has Boros, but Jeskai, Sultai, Grixis, a lot of blue plus 2 other color shells, because I really enjoy those value oriented.
Yeah, I definitely agree with
recursion play styles.
I definitely agree with that. Like, I think you are for sure like the value engine player, and the instant speed thing was really interesting because I think that's very true. I think most of your decks, you try to always play instant speed, which is actually interesting because I recently tried to see what the biggest hits were from new sets over the last couple of years. And so I broke down what, the biggest hits were and then tried to like do some very preliminary analysis on them. There were almost no sorceries. Oh, almost all of the spells that were like considered like the big hits from the last couple of years were all instants. So I think the player base understands the value of instants, which I think is really interesting. But you especially, like most of your decks perform primarily at instant speed. I would say, to echo on a lot of things you said, like recursion, I think is like a big part of your playstyle. Even in a deck that's not like a graveyard recursion deck, like Garth, you're still trying to recur value through blinking or untapping. And it's just like trying to like get something that's like repeatable, is something that's in most of your decks, I think, and is part of like your signature playstyle, which is cool.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's kind of where I think recursion, and then another thing I really have enjoyed in deck building most recently is like flexibility, like putting in cards that like can do multiple things. And I think at the risk of talking about Garth every 5 minutes in every episode, I think
it's your only casual deck right now.
Yeah, right, exactly. That's the reason I really like Garth though, is because he is such like a toolbox commander that you can do a lot of things.
Yeah.
All right, same question back to you though. What do you think is your signature play style?
I think my signature play style right now is like resource accumulation, where it's like I just want to ramp and I just want to have way more resources than anybody else. Sometimes that's card draw. It's not always card draw. It quite frequently involves card draw. But somehow trying to like flood the board with more resources than anybody else. Just because I find like it's fun. I get to play my deck. I get to like play out all the things that I have, and also it's easier to rebuild if I get interrupted. So I don't know. I like ramping.
I think that's true. I think the big mana decks are your.
Yeah.
I think you really like big mana,
which is funny because I don't have any like X spell decks or like anything that's like trying to produce like infinite mana. I just want a lot of mana.
yeah, and I think for a while that turned into things that were like potentially looping or not, like making just tons and tons of mana. Like when I think about your decks from the past years that you've built, because you had some that were like precons that you'd like upgraded or whatever. I can only think of one that two, I guess. One that wasn't green and also didn't produce just like an ungodly amount of mana. And it's Shieldred, your Shieldred the Apocalypse deck.
That did produce a lot of mana. I'm not gonna lie on that one.
It did produce a lot of mana, but it produced a lot of mana with like Kurik and stuff like that. So it like did a lot of mana like
Cryptghast, extra planar lens. You have to get creative in black.
You have to get creative in black outside of the Cabal Coffers, Urborg type lines. Yep. But and the other one is Brago, but Brago just produces way too much mana. Yeah. So which is like an artifacts green deck.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly.
Yeah. So I would say like big Simic big mana stuff has kind of been been your thing.
I love Simic big mana. I keep building those decks. I can't stay away from them. Like I try other stuff, but yeah, I keep.
I think I actually would call it a teamer. Your teamer. But it's green plus red or green plus blue. I feel like is kind of the
interesting,
or just green. Yeah, green base.
Green base. Big mana.
I think of like Mirim, and you had a Corvold deck for a little while that you were doing that. Like it made a lot of mana too, and
it's hard to stay away from the mana. It's hard to.
It's nice. It's great.
So how do you feel like you developed? It seems like you recognize your play style pretty well. How do you feel like you got to that? Like from the beginning when you started building decks, do you think that's what you naturally gravitated to? Or do you feel like you tried some things that you ended up not liking and this is just like kind of where you ended up?
from the beginning of playing Magic, I thought black was very cool. I really like the swamp, and I like the aesthetic of black. It's changing a little bit because the aesthetic of black, like just the aesthetic of Magic, is changing, which kind of stinks. Because I liked the grungier, darker version of black a little bit. Like, but I always really liked black decks, and so, and then artifacts I thought were really cool when I first started playing too. I liked the idea that they were colorless. They weren't just like creatures. They did other things. And so I started out with a mono black standard deck that ran like Dreadshade, which is like, and Cabal Stronghold and a bunch of basic swamps. It was a really dumb deck, and I was playing against my friends that had like just piles of cards from booster packs. So like probably wasn't very good, but it was like doing really well when I was playing with my friends, which was so dumb. And then I got into Commander, and I built Sidri Galvanic Genius, which is an artifact deck that can turn them into creatures. I thought that was very cool. It was one of the top commanders in those colors, top artifact commanders at the time on EDH Rec. And I thought that was very cool to try to get into. And then my first deck that I actually put together in paper, like on a budget, outside, I mean, because Sidri, I kind of put together with cards that I had plus some other ones, was Shirei.
Oh, cool.
And yes, and I really liked Shirei and the mono black like aristocrats type strategy and the recursion type strategy. So pretty early on, the value train of recursion and like doing stuff on other people's turns to recur, like the each end step stuff. I think I liked that pretty early on. And then, that took me to Rakdos and Sulta, and like Muldrotha was graveyard stuff. I just really have always liked graveyard stuff. I thought that was very fun. I liked zombies as a theme. So I just kind of always liked that, and it kind of just pushed me that direction and into like adjacent strategies.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I think one of my first decks was a Simic +1/+1 counter deck, which made me fall in love with Simic. But then, like, I did try pretty recently after that. I had like an Edgar Markov deck. I had, I don't know. I recently took apart like a dozen decks. And it's just because they weren't playstyles that I was enjoying anymore. And so I just didn't pick them up anymore. Even the Shieldred deck I took apart. But that was mostly because people don't like playing against Shieldred. But, yeah, so I do think like I went through, I think I found things that I liked very early, but I didn't stick with them from the beginning. I think I identified some of the things I liked, but then I kept trying a lot of new things. And over time, I just found that I kept coming back to some of those original ones that I enjoyed. And so now that's like mainly what I focus on when I'm looking to build a new deck. I'm like, am I really going to want to pick up this deck? Is this doing something either that I love or that's interesting enough and different enough from what I love that I'm actually going to pick it up and play? So
yeah, I think that's the key, right? Because I think it's important. I think it's important as a commander player to make your best budget upgrade to your deck or to your player to whatever to improve as a player. And I think part of improving as a player is learning and playing other play styles and strategies. I think that is very beneficial. And I think it's cool to broaden your horizons. I still have never built a deck that has Selesnya in its color identity.
Ever.
Ever, I don't think.
Wow.
Yeah. I've put together a few Abzan decks like on Moxfield, but I've never like actually built them. I think I will at some point and do +1/+1 counters and stuff.
Whatever our next budget event is or our next deck building challenge that we do on the channel,
gosh, dude.
We're gonna force you to do Selesnya.
Oh, dude, Yannick and Nikara are gonna hit so hard at our next budget
that
night.
is a sweet deck. I've seen the deck list that you put together for that one.
I really want to try that one, but I think it's cool to recognize. I think you should have more fun in Magic when you recognize the decks that you enjoy or the types of decks you enjoy playing. Yeah. I like keep trying to convince myself these other commanders and other parts of the color pie or whatever are decks that I want to build, and I find myself not like CDC Brood Tyrant is we talk about our decks all the time. I feel like I'm going to turn into the no shade to our friend on the EDH Rec cast, but I don't want to turn into the baby lasagna
Oh,
for
sure.
some
To
of
be
my
known
decks.
for that single deck. Yeah.
Yes, right. Not that I'd be so.
I think you're the
honored.
you're the Garth guy now, right?
I'd be honored to be known as Garth. But I also don't want to over talk about my decks. In any case, I think I think you don't need to force yourself. I think it's healthy to play them and try them. I don't think you need to force yourself to maintain a list and have a deck always of something that you're not particularly interested in or excited about.
People should
playing.
probably just brew more anyways. You don't have to build it, but you don't have to put it together in paper, but it's good to brew. Okay, well, let's jump into our next topic. The next topic that AI gave us was budget commander deck tech $50 challenge, and we'll combine it with another one of the topics it gave us is the best budget commander cards for 2025. So let's talk about these two in tandem since they're both focused on budget deck building. Honestly, I love that this is such a big part of the commander community because trying to build on a strict budget is, in my opinion, very, very fun. In my experience, it's been awesome.
Yeah, I've had a lot of fun doing it with our play group. I think it's also important. We've learned in our play group that it's also very important to not exclusively set budget restrictions.
Yeah.
Because it is so, there are strategies that are so good that it can be
easy to break on a budget.
Yes, 100%. And some, they just, other strategies cannot keep up with some of the more broken budget strategies. But we've done, we've done 25 is what we've done typically, right? 25. I think we did 35 once.
I think we've gone down as low as 15 before. I think it's generally like between 15 and 25 though. Like around 20 to 25 I think is where most of our budget rates have been.
Yeah, and those have been very, very fun. I think you just have to make sure you set other expectations. I will say I think it's actually becoming easier because they've been printing so many precons.
Yes.
Things like Soul Ring and Arcane Signet and the Talismans are now well within budget for a $25 budget deck. Maybe not well within.
I have noticed that
enough.
over the years as we've done these, they get more powerful every year, every time that we do these. And the way we do it is the basic lands are the only thing not included in the budget. The commander's in the budget. The mana base is all in the budget except for basic lands. I think one thing that we've learned, like you said, you should also set power level or bracket expectations for those decks before you build them.
Yes, 100%. Yes, 100%. Because sometimes it can just get out of control. I think like our example of something that got out of control was Spellslinger, right? I built a Vadric deck that got a little out of control. It was though it was intentional that got out of control.
Yes.
And you did the same thing with Malcolm and Breaches.
Yeah, I brought a second deck that was a Storm combo deck, and it was Malcolm Breaches, and it was great.
Yeah, I did not bring a second. I brought a second deck that was my very, very bad Ishin deck from previous years.
You hate that deck. You have you have a vendetta against Ishin.
It was my first time building a budget deck, and I did a really bad job. And it also just folds to Ishin getting removed, which is really tough in budget. And Ishin's scary. Ishin's like a big target to try to get rid of. I do think so. If we're talking about Spellslinger maybe being one of the more broken ones, I think something to stay away from in budget builds, I think, are popular typal synergies.
Oh, okay.
Because, I mean, of course we're getting stuff reprinted, and so some things are cheaper. Like if you were to build zombies, you could probably do that pretty easily now.
Probably, but it's not. But it would be missing most of the best zombies that make the synergy actually powerful, right?
I think it'd be missing some. I think more and more these days it actually. So maybe I'm amending my statement as I'm making it, but more and more these days we're getting enough reprints that it's becoming easier. Like with the new. With the Temerat deck that got printed in.
Oh, yeah, because Gravecrawler is like super cheap now, right?
Gravecrawler was in it, Grave Titan was in it, and Rot Hulk, which was like a $30 card, is now like under $1. And so you can play actually kind of some bangers in that deck now. But there are some exceptionally good cards that have gone up in price that you can't play anymore. Like Diregraph Colossus is a phenomenal card. Or Wilhelt is a phenomenal card that's just like outside of your budget and kind of doesn't make or break a deck like that, but is certainly a very good piece in those sort of decks. And the same thing is true for like elves. Like you're not going to be able to play the best elves in a $25 budget deck. And that's not to say that you can't play that in budget, but probably you'd be better off playing something with tighter synergies and looser theme, maybe.
Yeah.
Depending on what your restrictions are.
I think the next budget night we're going to do the $25 budget, but we're also going to set a restriction that you can't do any of the top 250 commanders from EDH Rec. And that way it'll push people away from like just classically powerful commanders. And you have to get, I mean, there's still a lot of powerful commanders after 250, but it'll encourage a little bit of, though, honestly, we've never had problems with like deck diversity on budget nights. Like nobody's brought like, oh yeah, that's like a top 10 commander. Nobody's done that, I don't think, at any of our budget nights. People use the opportunity to get more creative, which I love. I think it's so much fun.
Yeah, we have a lot of good actors outside of me and Kelson on the time we both visit Storm decks.
Well, yeah. And the story behind that is we had a friend that had won several of the budget nights previously, and we specifically built those decks to beat that one player and then got in the same pod with them so that we could beat them. We were sending a message.
Exactly.
Another one of the sections that AI included for this topic is the top 3 must-have budget cards. So I wanted to ask Spencer, what are your top 3 budget picks under $1 right now?
Okay, so as we were prepping for this, I felt like it was important to divorce this from a $25 budget night. Though you may not agree, I just don't know that I would put these in every budget deck or necessarily in any budget deck. But I do think,
but they're good budget picks.
But they are good budget picks, and I think the first one is the reason why I will say maybe not any budget deck, and it's culling ritual.
I don't know. Do you think it's too powerful, or do you think it misses too often?
I think it misses more often in a budget deck than it does in a traditional command, like a mid-power commander night.
This was one that's always surprising because I know it sees CEDH play, and it's still less than $1.
Yeah. So it's culling ritual. Let me read culling ritual really quick. So it's 2 black and a green for a sorcery, and it says destroy each non-land permanent with mana value 2 or less, and you add black or green for each permanent destroyed this way. I learned, please correct me if I'm wrong, I think I learned in a commander night the other night, or not a commander night, but I was playing some CDH, that there was a rest in peace on the battlefield. And even with rest in peace, technically those permanents are destroyed, but then they get exiled.
They don't go to the graveyard. Oh, is it a replacement effect?
I'll have to read rest in peace because
for going to the graveyard. If a card would be put into a graveyard, it goes like exile it instead.
If a token would be put into a graveyard, exile instead. Rest in peace is a replacement effect.
Interesting. Yeah. So it probably still is considered destroyed. Interesting.
I suppose. Yeah, I'll have to look that one up. Actually, we didn't look it up. I'm going on faith from the other commander players. Yeah, because it was in my favor.
They were.
Oh, it was an opponent.
I was gonna say it was a trust me, bro moment. But,
yeah, here's the thing. It was I cast the killing ritual and it was an opponent. So I was like, all right, man. Like I even said, there's a rest in peace. Do I get mana for this? And they were like, yes. And so I took it on faith that I do get mana for that. Indeed. In any case, I think this is a cool card. I think it's a very cool budget card and a cool card to include in your commander decks. Though I don't know that I would always put it in a budget deck.
Because it may not actually perform as well as you hope.
Yes, exactly.
Makes sense.
But it's pretty sweet. It's a pretty sweet, like...
It is good.
Get rid of all your small stuff.
I should play it more often. I already know I should play it more
I like it a lot.
Okay, what's your next one?
Oh, wait, I'm doing all 3?
Let's just hear all 3. Yeah.
Okay, my next one is biased because of my boy Garth, and it's Doppelgang.
Oh my gosh. This card is... insane.
It's so nuts. It's XXX green blue for a sorcery. And for each of X target permanents, create X tokens that are copies of that permanent. When this card first got released, I was like, oh, this seems dumb. Except that it was impossible to read this correctly. Like I didn't understand what this was doing.
It's funny because I can read it correctly. But until I make up a scenario in my head where it's like, oh, I get that many of those things like on the battlefield, until I can like put it in context of, oh, this practically just ends the game when I cast this, it's still hard to evaluate.
Yeah, so let's put it in context. So the way I first read this was, 5 mana, copy a permanent. That sounds terrible.
Yeah.
Right? And then your immediate next thought is XXX. Oh, that's 8 mana, copy 2 permanents. But no. It is 8 mana, make 2 copies of 2 permanents.
Yeah, so 8 mana, you get 4
things. Yes. So it scales exponentially, not exponentially, because it's not linearly.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's exponentially. It is exponentially because when you do 3, you get 3 copies of 3 permanents, so 9.
So it goes from 1 to 4 to 9.
Yeah, is that? I don't know what that is, but that is basically exponential. That's approaching exponential.
Sure.
I don't know.
It's
crazy. It's squares. It's squares is what it is.
Sure.
You're going up in squares. I don't know what that curve looks like, but it's cool. Okay,
it is cool because once you hit 2 is good. If x equals 2, it's good. If x equals 3, it's broken in half because you get 9 permanents, and if you can't win the game with 9 permanents, 9 of the best things on the battlefield, then you're in a bad spot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Time out.
Awesome.
We're going back to math class here. That is literally exponentially because it's x squared. So that's not exponentially.
Wouldn't exponential go 2, 4, 16, then 16 times 16? Is that what exponential is? Or is it 1, 2, 4?
That's 2 to the x, which is, I guess, exponentially. Okay. So it's not 2 to the x, it's x squared. Okay. Which is parabolically. 2, 4, 8, 16,
is that 32, 64, 128. Like that curve. That's exponential.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, I'll believe you.
All right. I'm looking
I'm glad we cleared that up.
Everybody enjoy. Welcome to our math podcast.
While we wait for Spencer, I'm going to read his last card.
Sorry, I'll read my last card. It's parabolically. My last card is a card that I thought was not going to be under $1 when it first released.
Okay, you put this on this. I didn't think it was. I can't believe it is under $1. I've bought this for more than $1.
Yeah, I did too. It's Revitalizing Repast. So it's hybrid Golgari mana. So either a black or a green for an instant. You put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. It gains indestructible till end of turn. And the flip side, it's a dual side. It's an MDFC. The other side, it's a modal double-faced card. The other side is Old Growth Grove. That's a land. It enters tapped, and it taps for black or green mana. This card is sick. This replaces a land. Okay, it doesn't replace a land. It replaces a land in my decks.
It shouldn't. Yeah. It's a bonus land. It's a bonus land in your decks. That's how you should think about it.
Yes. 2 of these replaces a land in my decks. And and it's also pretty decent interaction. Especially in decks that care about putting counters on anything or things surviving removal that isn't exile.
I wish this was the Sink into Stupor style where it's just green and then the other side is a green bolt land.
Yes, I actually agree with you. My first instinct was to not agree with you because I'm like, why? Because it's black and green. That's sick. But that's not good. That's not better.
That's not good.
That's worse. You can't play this in
so
green
many
decks.
fewer decks that you can play it in. Yeah, I think honestly that's why I don't play more of it. It's just like I just don't have that many Golgari decks anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, more for me. More Revitalizing Repast for me.
It's good. Yeah.
All right, tell me about your cards. Speaking of green, tell me about your cards.
Yeah, 2 of them are good. Yeah, okay, I guess I am just like green big mana stuff because that's what I've picked here. So the first one is Spinner of Souls, 2 and a green for a creature, Spider Spirit at rare from Foundations. It's a 4/3 with reach. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, you may reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card. Put that card in your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. This card is 44 cents and I just don't understand it. Like, I don't understand how people don't play this on almost every green deck. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. So I can tell you why. Can I take a shot at why?
Yeah.
For some reason, when I read this effect, I'm like, this is cool. This is awesome. This is sweet. And then the clause that says, put it into your hand, I'm like, oh, not the battlefield? Dumb.
How much do you want for a 3-mana 4/3 with reach?
No, okay. 100%.
It draws you a card every time a creature dies.
Right. So I 100% know that's unreasonable. I know that's not good. But so many cards are like, I mean, not so many, but there are cards that are good enough that do something like that. You know what I mean? Like what's her face that does it with Atla Blondie does it with eggs, right? And they put it on the battlefield, and so I'm like, like Atla puts on the battlefield.
That's
However,
that's a 3-mana card that requires you to invest additional mana to create eggs.
100%.
Or no, sorry, 3-color card. Is that what did I say 3 mana or 3 color? 3-color.
I think it's a 3 mana, but it's 3 color, 4 mana.
Yes.
Yeah. So, right, I'm not saying I'm right here in any way, but I do think that is like the easy path to follow heuristically. And I think that's what I did here. And this card alone has helped me reevaluate a ton of other cards.
Yeah.
That put things directly into your hand, because it is just drawing a card. Like this is
not only is it drawing you a card, it's guaranteed drawing you a creature. Like it's not like your creature's gonna die and you get a land card back. Like you get another creature. So you could have a Land War Elves die, and then you get a Craterhoof Behemoth. Like that's crazy.
Yeah. It's what's the black version of this that draws you? So Midnight Reaper is an example of this.
Yes.
Midnight Reaper, when a non-token creature you control dies, it deals 1 damage to you and you draw a card. This is Midnight
far
Reaper
better.
in green. Yes.
Far better.
Yes. I think for the most part, unless you don't want to draw a creature card specifically.
But you're playing green, Spencer.
I know.
I would play green.
Okay. You're right. I should not be poking holes in the Spinner of Souls theory.
It's okay. Don't buy them. I'm going to buy all of them. And then when you want one, you're going to come to me and they're going to be $83 because I've bought every copy of them.
More Spinner of Souls for you. More Revitalizing Repasts for me. But I do think that's like when hopefully viewers, when you see this card, you think Midnight Reaper or whatever the other one is that I can't remember the name of it right now.
Yeah.
That does this effect.
Yep. It's good. I mean, Midnight Reaper is good because you play it in zombie decks because it's a zombie, right?
It is a zombie, but like you don't have to play it just in zombie decks. I'm thinking of the other one right now, and it's called.
Is it a black card that draws you a card whenever a non-token creature dies? There's Kothafed, but that's even better because it's whenever any creature dies, right?
It's CMC3, and I can't remember.
If you think about it, yell it out while I read the next card.
Read your next card. I'll yell it out.
Next one is also green. Return of the Wild Speaker, 4 and a green for an instant. Choose one. Draw cards equal to the greatest power among non-human creatures you control, or non-human creatures you control get +3/+3 until end turn. We talked about how you've been valuing flexibility more recently. How about an instant that can facilitate either an alpha strike or a bunch of card draw? This one's awesome.
Like this card is super sick. Grim Haruspex, by the way.
Grim Haruspex. Thank you.
Grim Haruspex. Sorry. Yeah, dude. Okay. This card is so good, especially in decks that are playing big non-human creatures.
I think you'd be surprised how many creatures in green are non-human.
100%. No, yeah. I think there are a ton of them. My experience with this card comes exclusively from playing Faldorn. That makes a lot of wolves, but not particularly big wolves.
Yeah.
But
it's also an overrun.
But it's also an overrun. Exactly. Yeah. So that's like, I think that's what makes the flexibility so insane with this card is like, unfortunately, if you've gone wide, you won't be able to draw that many cards. But if you've gone wide, you can slam somebody for lethal. This card, I think, and it's an instant speed overrun. Overrun is sorcery speed, right?
I think it is.
Though it doesn't give trample. Overrun does give trample.
This doesn't give trample. So it really is like, it pays you off for going tall or it pays you off for going wide.
Yes.
Which is awesome. Those are the two things that you want to do in green is either go wide or go tall. Both of them work with this card, which is awesome. And may have different utility at different points in the game. Right.
It's a card, and the art is so
it's pretty sick. It's really cool. I don't think we've ever gotten new art for this card. I wouldn't mind. I guess it always has to feature Garrick.
Yeah, it does always have to feature Garrick in some form.
Yeah.
And
it is very good.
Is he completed and dead? I don't know what the lore with Garrick is.
We'll have to check. My last one's Coveted Jewel. 6 mana for an artifact. When it enters the battlefield, you draw 3 cards. You tap to add 3 mana of any one color. Whenever one or more creatures an opponent controls attack you, and aren't blocked, that player draws 3 cards and gains control of Coveted Jewel. Untap it.
Kelton, I don't know. Certainly, you're only tapping this for 3 mana and drawing 3 cards with Coveted Jewel, right?
Yeah, the reality is if I play it, you are not getting a chance to gain control of it. Or I am either blinking it and winning the game, or returning it to my hand, or maybe all of the above.
Yeah, this card is sick. This card is sick,
Yeah.
especially in a deck that can abuse it.
Yep.
Here's the thing though. So this is one among the cards. If we're talking about maybe you don't want to play this in a budget deck, I don't know if that's true for any of yours. I think Culling Ritual might have been like kind of the only one that maybe fits that mold. This is one that I think could get a lot of juice in a budget deck where somebody is potentially not going to be able to, where you could potentially protect yourself easier than you could against a more efficient deck that can go wide more easily to hit you.
I also think this is super fun to play in a budget deck as strictly what's written on the card. Like a fun thing to pass around the table is also super valid.
Yes.
Because there's politicking where you say, I'll let you take it from me if you let me take it back from you next turn. Right? And then you're like downplaying the downside of you being down 6 mana to play this, and then an opponent gets this for free, right?
100%.
Because then you get it
100%.
twice, and then it's definitely worth it, right? So
yeah.
I don't know. I think it's a fun card to abuse. It's also just a fun card to play.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. I think it's sick. I don't have any decks that can play it really particularly well. I think it's sick. I think it's sick when you can.
It's very good. It's very.
Is that sad? Is that sad that you're talking about? This is such a fun card to play for politics. And I'm like, I don't play this card, but it's cool how much you can abuse it. Like that, I'm like that. All I care about is the abusing it portion.
Yeah, I bet I could find a deck of yours like this. Like any go wide deck, it's probably pretty good in. So like Faldorn or, the Bloodsower. What's her name?
Tana Tevish. Yeah,
like, you could probably play it in either of those.
I'm certain I can find spots for this. Yeah.
All right, the next topic that AI gave us is why I'm not buying the new precons, which just feels super inflammatory and clickbaity.
Yeah, maybe that's where people are sometimes getting their titles. Is like I mean, we're doing that today, so obviously we're not exempt from this. But I can't. It's so funny that YouTube is like, hey man, this is the stuff that works. I don't know what you want from me.
People love to complain about precons. Yeah. So one of the suggested hooks for this one is, you might be surprised to hear this, but I'm not buying the new pre-constructed decks. Let me explain why and why you might want to reconsider before you do too. And some of the key points that it gives in the outline are like the price point of commander decks, like of precons, like are there better precons at a better price point? The power level. What I thought was really interesting that it even mentioned like is the precon going to be able to hold up in the current competitive meta? I was like, no, of course not. It's a precon. And then it also made the argument, the AI made the argument of like, maybe just consider buying single cards instead of the precon. I was like, yeah, you should always buy singles. So that kind of left me thinking, how are we feeling about the current state of precons? Where are you on precon, Spencer? Because you and I have a slightly different approach to precons. One of us has an addiction to precons, and the other one doesn't. So
yeah, and the other one is me,
and the other one is you.
So okay, I honestly, I used to be pretty up on buying precons, especially to get singles. As my collection has become more complete, I have become less interested in buying precons for singles. In fact, the two most recent ones that I bought for singles, three of them, have been the Miracles one from Duskmourn to get the Miracle Reanimator card. Which is do you remember the name of that one? Metamorphosis Fanatic. Yeah. I'm gonna look some of these up really quick if that's okay, because I want to see. Sure. I actually want to see how worth it is. So Metamorphosis Fanatic is a $5 card. I should not have spent.
It was 35. Higher. Wasn't it like 12 or something like that?
It was higher. Even so, I should not have spent the amount of money I did on a deck that I'm potentially just going to take apart for a Metamorphosis Fanatic to get that card.
Sure, that's true.
The next one was the zombie precon from Aether Drift.
Oh, sure.
I bought those precons in like a pack because I wanted to. I wasn't interested in the other one. Maybe it was just gonna like resell it. I was interested in the zombie precon.
Yep.
Because I wanted Hashaton. Because I thought Hashaton was really cool. The value in that precon is not particularly high anymore.
And Ashdod's only $1.
Ashdod's only $1. So I probably and the other big one we talked about earlier, Grave Titan was one of them, and then the big guy, Rot Hulk,
Yep.
which was like $30, and I wanted Rot Hulk. Guess what? I built a budget-ish zombie deck, and Rot Hulk was like $1.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I think Rot Hulk is like super cheap.
Yeah, it is
now.
96 cents. That's nuts.
Yep. Yeah. So again, probably shouldn't have bought that precon. And then the last one was the Sultai deck from Tarkir Dragonstorm. That one I'm happy about. That one I'm actually happy about because there's a fair amount of cards in there that I wanted. I still probably should have just bought the singles, but that one I did kind of want as a complete. That's a lie. I'm gonna take it apart probably. I thought about wanting it as a complete deck. I'm probably just gonna like combine Sidisi, Brood Tyrant, and Teval into a deck and make that one of my decks that I play. And so honestly, like this is a clickbaity thing, but is actually kind of true about how I'm feeling about precons.
That you're not buying them anymore.
I'm not buying them as much anymore. I'm just kind of buying the singles because they're not as. I think it's the same thing of like Secret Lairs too. Is they used to be like have like so much cool value in them, and like
which
honestly, they were
sometimes
kind of
they still do. It's just that you've already bought those cards.
I survived about those cards, and frankly, like they're being printed to a degree that those cards also aren't maintaining their value.
Sure.
After,
that's true.
To the point where it's not where it would have been. It's worth it to buy the precon to get all the singles.
Yeah.
And you can probably just buy the singles that you want instead of the precon. Because before, it was like Jessica's Will would get a reprint, and Jessica's Will was still $20. And so it's well, I'll buy this deck, and I'll get Jessica's Will and Birds of Paradise and whatever.
Yeah, I think it used to be that like the reprints would maintain value, or then after that the reprints would dive and then recover. And now we've reprinted them enough that they're just low, which is a good thing. We want that. Wizards, don't stop reprinting things in precons. Please continue to reprint good staples in precons. I think that I've had a similar journey as you in the first like 2/3 of my precon journey, where it's like you start buying precons because it's an easy way to get into the game and you don't have to build your own commander deck. And that's like a really good way to start in commander. So like that, I think that's where a lot of people start as precons. Then you start buying precons to build your collection because of the reprint value. There was like a time where it was like, oh, this precon's like $35, and one of the cards that I want is $15 in the deck. So why would I not just buy the precon, and now I get my $15 card plus another whole deck that I get to play with that card in. So like that, I feel like that was the second stage. And then where we diverged is you were like, well, I'm not getting any value out of these reprints anymore. I don't need to buy the decks because I know I'm not playing them. And I'm like, I want to collect all the precons. I love playing precon games. I love playing precons against each other. I'm going to try and collect as many precons as I can. And I feel like that's kind of like where our paths diverged, which is totally fine. I still love precon games. They're awesome.
Yeah, and I think that's the reason nowadays I think those are the two reasons to buy precons for the most part. Is that you are getting into Commander, you want a deck to start out with, and you want to upgrade that deck. I think that is reason number one. And reason number two is you want to collect.
Yeah.
Like, okay, reason number two is that you want that precon. You just want it.
Yeah.
You just like, that's like, you're interested in that precon and you think it's sick. And then number three is like, you're collecting precons. If you're trying to get singles or value, precons aren't like Smothering
They're not
Tithe.
as good anymore.
You're not going to hit a Smothering Tithe than a precon anymore, or a Trouble in Pairs.
Okay,
you might.
Okay, but I was just about to bring up Trouble in Pairs. Like, how much is Trouble in Pairs?
$20.
I think that deck was like, it's $25, the cheapest printing. I think that deck was like $25 at one time.
Okay,
so it's like,
so that
occasionally you get a banger out of a precon that's kind of a design mistake. And that card, like Dockside Extortionist, was until it got banned, that like a precon card. And so like occasionally I think
Fierce Guardianship, Deflecting SWAT, like
awesome,
those
but those are like 1 in a million, right? Like you can't buy every precon expecting that to happen.
In fact,
it's just not going to work.
Virtually zero precons I have bought have had like a hit like that of this is the next big whatever.
Yeah,
I think the only one has been Black Market Connections, and guess what?
Which is
it's been
reprinted into the ground.
Yeah,
because
it's great, and it was like prohibitively priced. And kudos
man, it's
to
still
Wizards.
Like $13.
Is it really?
Yeah,
It was
that's crazy.
30, so that's better. At
Yeah,
least
but it was
better.
even lower for a little while. I think
was
I
like-
saw them for like $9 or something like that.
Yeah. Maybe not ever 5 or 10, but
Crazy. Anyways, yeah, I honestly my biggest gripe with precons right now is just price and availability. Like Wizards has just increased the price. The contents I don't think are like meaningfully better. Though we continue to get good reprints, which I appreciate. Like we just need to keep reprinting things. But the availability is rough. Like it's hard. I've wanted to buy the Dragonstorm, Tarkir Dragonstorm precons so bad. I cannot find them available at the price that I feel comfortable paying for them.
okay, can I say though, I think that might be a localized problem with Tarkir Dragonstorm.
Really?
And yes, because if I think back on the most recent sets, the only 2 sets that I felt that for are Tarkir Dragonstorm and Bloomburrow. Where people were like super stoked on them.
Recently getting into Commander. I mean, but the same thing just happened with like Edge of Eternities is already sold out. Like I missed the window to buy Edge of Eternities.
Upcoming
However, Edge of Eternities did, I have heard, have a smaller print run than other recent sets. They just haven't printed as much. They just don't expect it to be as popular, I don't think.
Oh, is the window to like, because we do a lot of pre-ordering because we get excited about it, and that's when you can kind of get the best prices on these precons.
Yeah.
For if you're collecting them.
Yeah.
For
a
which
lot
I may
of
not be
places,
doing
it's
as
closed.
much. Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Okay, so I think looking forward with
for like
Final
a really
Fantasy,
good deal, I'm very picky in the price at which I'm willing to pick up a Commander deck because, like I said, I just don't think the value's there anymore in the same way.
Sure.
So I want to get it on a good deal. And yeah, I feel like I kind of missed the window of the deal for Edge of Eternity, and certainly for Dragonstorm. I expect next year I'll be able to pick up Tarkir Dragonstorm at an extremely cheap price.
At a decent price, yeah, absolutely.
Because they're going to continue to print those decks.
Yeah, and they'll print the cards from those decks in other decks and in other sets and whatever.
It'll
so I ultimately, if you watched our episode last week, we talked about collectability and affordability of Magic. This is a really good thing for the affordability of Magic.
Yes, please.
We
love
it doesn't
precons.
cost me. Yeah,
even if Spencer's not buying them, keep printing them.
Yeah, the fact that it doesn't cost me $30 to get Reanimate and Toxic Deluge for a black deck that I want to play is like so, and Phyrexian Arena, like those 3 cards would have set me back like $70 3 years ago.
Yeah, and they've gotten better, and precons have also just gotten better, like more powerful.
For sure. And now people aren't even playing Phyrexian Arena, but like anyway, I think I'm
still a precon lover.
Precons.
I'm going to keep buying them. My only gripe is like their recent availability for the last few sets.
Yeah. Come on, Wizards.
And Final Fantasy. Good luck on Final Fantasy.
That is our inflammatory content.
Yeah.
Is that Wizards needs to print more of them.
Yeah, or at least make it like more accessible to buy. I don't know. I remember how excited everybody got about MSRP when Wizards was like, "We're going back to MSRP," and everyone was like, "Great, that means I'm not overpaying for product." We are now more than ever. We are overpaying for product. It's more expensive, far above MSRP.
Yeah, it sucks. Okay, can we talk about the prompt that I'm most excited to talk about? And
the very last section.
The very last section, and it is Commander staples that need a buff. So let me read this summary really quick. Commander staples are cards that appear in nearly every deck, but some of them could be more powerful. This video will explore which staple cards could benefit from a slight boost in their stats or abilities, making them even more valuable for Commander players. This is so psychotic that to think that cards that are staples need to be made stronger. Now, I think there are videos.
You did just mention
Phyrexian
Arena.
I did just mention Phyrexian Arena. That's what I'm saying. I think the intention of this potentially is that we want to talk about cards that used to be staples that maybe aren't staples anymore because there's better versions of those effects, like something like Croson Grip, which I don't think sees as much play because you have stuff like Beast Within or whatever that are like.
And you know what, Spencer? I would almost believe you on that interpretation, but what really sells it for me is this next section. Let me read this. Okay. Focus on specific cards. Highlight a few staple cards. Soul Ring, Command Tower, Mana Crypt, and delve into why they could benefit from a slight buff. present buff ideas, offer potential buffs to each of these cards, discussing their impact on the format and how they would improve deck building strategies, engage viewer opinion, encourage viewers to share their own thoughts on proposed buffs, prompting discussion and community interaction.
Oh my gosh. All right, everybody. So how do you all think that you would buff Soul Ring, Command Tower, and Mana Crypt to make them more playable in the current Commander environment?
I love it. Put your answers in the comments. I cannot wait to read those. Thank you, everybody, for listening. That's going to do it for this week. Make sure to subscribe, join our Discord, and remember to always pay the one.